another one. Straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrant stop, who tell the truth? Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrants can stop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, and SCAP stands for unity. One people, one nation, one destiny. Free up the truth in the air, even the blind can see. The deaf can hear, the dumb can talk, the cripple can walk. Boom. Who tell the truth? Migrants stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrant stop, who tell the truth? Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrants, we have to gather wrong, grab a seat and sit down, pay attention. Education, liberation, we have to stand strong. Ben's cap upon the radio, lively up the program.
All right, hey, guess what? Good evening. You see on the screen there, our guest this evening is the Honorable Member of Parliament, also the leader of the Alliance for Change, also the former Minister of Home Affairs. I think they changed it under the Coalition to National Security, and then when the PPP got installed, they changed it again. All right, that's just to let you guys know who's going to be on, who's our guest this evening. We will be joined by Wayne Caesar as well, so we're going to have a packed program this evening. Lots and lots of questions for Member of Parliament Kemraj Ramjatan. We want to know a lot of things, not just about what Jack Day had to say, because we'll spend very little time on Jack Day. Not too many people pay much attention to him. We know he's just basically what I've coined a flat-foot hustler there in Guyana. But let's get ready to rock and roll this evening as you take 30 seconds to share the link. We'll be right back.
Basement, level vibes with another one, straight up, blackness aye. Who tell the truth? Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrant stop, who tell the truth? Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, registration is the fruit. Migrant stop.
Hello, this is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm, located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.
Yeah, my name is Jacinti Caldata Francis Vietnam, and since 1965 I become a voter, and I always place my ex next to the cup, and what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
All right, you've seen it there. You heard it all. If they have to lose by one vote, they'll lose that one. They'll lose it by data. And I've always said before, you know, they have lots and lots of data. Lots of datas around the country. Mr. Ramjatan would know. He's from number 47, I believe 47, 48 village on the quarantine. almost everybody in the village under quarantine, somebody in every village named Data, Auntie Data, Lil Data, Sumintra Data, everybody Data. Mr. Ramjatan, good evening to you. How are you, sir?
I am doing fine. I'm doing fine, Beskov, Mark, and glad to be in a program here tonight. I'm glad to have that's Wayne Caesar also. Hi,
Yeah.
good night.
Good night, Honorable Member of Parliament, Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan. Good evening to you. Good evening, Mark, and good evening to all our listeners and viewers.
Good evening. Thank you. And to all of our people, let's start right off the bat. One of our favorite listeners, Brenda Casey. She has a death in the family. We just want to extend condolences to you and your entire family, Miss Casey. And for any other person out there or persons who have some sort of death or whatever in your family, our condolences as well. There's a lady that used to protest with us almost every time we were out there. She's from Campbellville. Her name is Joan. I'm sorry. I'll remember the name, but her first name is Joan. She died just the other day, so condolences, Joan Eastman. There we go. Those of you who know Joan Eastman and her relatives out in Guyana, let them know that we extend our condolences to the family members. Let's get ready to rock and roll this evening. Wayne, good to see you. Mr. Ramjatan, good to see you. After such a long time, you're no usual stranger to us here on 107.1 FM. Let's begin with everything gone up. Price gone up, Bora gone up, Baji gone up, Kalalu gone up, Sain gone up, Saijan Baji gone up. Everything gone up. How are people surviving in Guyana, Mr. Ramjatan?
It's tough. It's really, really tough. And what has made it worse is the grand expectations that life was going to be better with all that oil monies coming in. And I know of situations, especially in the estate areas, Albion and Skeldon and a number of the other rural rice farming areas too, whereby although they can plant their crops and so on, this sunny weather, this real terribly hot weather has withered a lot of their farms. And so they themselves having problems, and also because of the shortage of these greens and boron and other ground provisions and so on, the prices in the markets have been inflated. Very big time inflation occurring with prices there. And to that extent, a number of them just can't cook 3 meals or have 3 meals, whether cooked twice or thrice a day in their homes. And they've been complaining quite a lot. As a matter of fact, some of the biggest complaints were also given to Irfan and the team that went to Mara recently. A lot of them don't want to talk about what transpired there. And a lot of the tape recordings of these people complaining about that were literally cut off from their meetings and so on. People have been telling them that life is getting very bad for them. School reopening and all of that. Lots of expenses for clothing, shoes, books, and they've been saying it. And also, I noticed Stabrook News have been doing something on the cost of living. It's about the 38th or 40th edition of several people talking their minds, and almost 90% of them indicating similarly to what we have been finding out on the ground as we go. Only recently, I was there in the sugar workers case at New Amsterdam Magistrates Court, and a number of the sugar workers, again, telling me how life is difficult. Remember, it was difficult even to get that $60,000 bail monies. I'm doing the matter pro bono for them. There's no legal fees. But they are telling me the difficulty even of catching passage to come to court and go back home because they miss a day's work and so on. For those who, they were on their private errands working as laborers for people and so on. And the cost of missing out a day's pay now that they have to come to court. They have been telling me how hard it is. And most of these guys, they not make 1 or 2 picnic, they may make 5, 6, and sometimes 8 and 10. And they now got to, in this crisis, ensure that they get their meals, get their clothes, and so on. What is also even making it tougher is that a lot of their relatives overseas, somehow they used to send a lot of remittances, and the remittances have now become diminished Obviously, because there are hard times in America after that COVID and so on, a number of them get knocked off and so on. And they're saying that kind of thing is not coming in as it used to, and the barrels and so on. So our revenue stream that used to come in the form of the diaspora monies is not as large as it is, especially for these poorer people. And that is really kind of accentuating and making worse the situation here for the people, and especially the poor people.
Very
However, when you go to some of my other friends, I got some contractor friends and so on in Borbis, them guys doing well. They get the children and so on, bringing in brand new vehicle. Them fellas could offer you Moet and all of that inside of the house. Moet premium and so on. Mr. Ramjetan, nobody with the politics, come try a shot. And they're doing very well because the contractors are minting money. Those who are successful in their bids.
But the ordinary people aren't getting much at all.
That's right. And that is the inequality, a massive inequality under that communist party that used to talk about equality and working class and all of that.
Yeah.
Totally different.
14 minutes after 9 o'clock. If you're now joining us, I'm Mark Benchop. My guest this evening is Mr. Ramjetan. And we have, of course, my sidekick, as we say, Wayne Caesar with us. Anil Sugrim, all the way out there in Corriverton. Pastor Anil Sugrim, he is a counselor for the APNU AFC out in quarantine there. He says the cost of living under the PPP is ripping Guyanese up. Anil Sugrim is saying it, ripping Guyanese up. I can just imagine what the people are faced with at Little India, Little Africa, out there in Corriverton, the entire quarantine region. Thank you so much, Pastor Anil Sugrim. You're due a visit here on this show. It's been a long time. But I heard also, Mr. Ramjetan, before we get to the first question from Mr. Caesar, that even porine leaf, back in the days, you just go in a trench and you rip porine leaf. That guy's selling porine leaf right now. Have you heard that too?
Well, actually, I haven't heard that, but I noticed that it is not in the large stocks in the trenches and canals and so on as it used to be. And that has to be, of course, because the fact that lots more people are around and more people might be using it. But you might be right, indeed, with your information that people selling that now. I'll have to check it out.
Please do, because I used to love that. And porine leaf, for some of you, it's a big leaf, the green leaf that you eat. And I remember, just a little humor before we get to Mr. Caesar, a couple of foreigners went to Guyana, some Caucasian guys, and they got the food in the porine leaf. And instead for them to eat the food, they ate the porine leaf. Of course, you heard that joke, right? That and all, the price gone up. Everything gone up. Every single thing gone up under this PPP regime. Mr. Wayne Caesar, let's get to your first question, sir, to Mr. Ramjetan. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Ramjetan, my first question to you would be, based on all those issues that you would have just discussed with us, do you feel that it is accurate for it to be said that Guyana is the fastest growing economy? Because we're not seeing a reflection in the people. Your take, sir.
Well, the economy statistics will depend on a variety of other factors. It does not depend necessarily on how people are enjoying or how the wealth is being redistributed. Indeed, Guyana, because of the oil sector and that nuclear effect that has had on Guyana, we are making a lot more monies than we used to prior to that oil sector. That oil monies every year now is in the vicinity of 2 to 3 billion US dollars, which prior to it being a revenue stream was zero. So, I mean, it's lots more money we have. Now, what that 2 to 3 billion dollars direct revenue into the consolidated fund is added or supplemented with a humongous amount of other revenues as a result of employment by the shore-based people. So many other people have come in to set up factories in Guyana as a result that will supply, say, the Exxon bases and so on. it is important to understand a large set of revenues are coming in via those corporate entities and taxation as a result of the workers that are now employed there. And so we have, and in addition, this oil sector creating another $1 billion US or thereabouts in construction and a variety of other activities surrounding it. And so, yes, statistically, we are now virtually making GDP growth of in the vicinity of 33%, I think, last year. This year, it's going to be probably a little more, and so on. So we are growing tremendously, the fastest growing economy in the world. When you calculate it on how the IMF and the World Bank and the finance ministry would calculate it. Yes, we are doing well. But that money, notwithstanding 3 years of it now, have not been seeping down to the ordinary working class people of Guyana. And that's the point we wish to make here. Everything has gone up because, of course, we got lots of money. A lot of the other people who could afford it buy lots more borrow from these people. And so the demand is great. The poor people can't pay that kind of price for the borrow and so on. They can have to starve. They can have to do with less borrow now. And so it is hitting there because the monies from this $4 billion more revenue that we are getting seems not to be seeping down. What the government has done nothing as a matter of program or policy to let this money seep down to them. What it has done is say that we're going to have an infrastructure economy. And so they start building pumping stations, bridge, roads, everything. Now that is good, but you have to have a balance in your social policies that will seep the money down to the poor people and also your infrastructure work. What they have done is to put all the monies in infrastructure. And in an infrastructure, there is massive corruption because you don't know how accurate sometimes these costs of these projects are. And we understand now that a portion of that money is being sent to the war chest of the PPP. They're asking for about 20% of whatever is the cost of the thing. And so then they give a whole set of jagabats and trench crappos their contracts. Like we have Tipui Company, not even being 3 years in existence, and it getting a big $800 million. Some fella named Eunice in Blackbush there getting a big contract. They had to take away the contract the other day, and so on. And why? It is because it was corruptly granted. And that is why we continue with our policy statement that indeed this government, PPP government, only friends, families, favorites, and flatterers now. Once you can flatter some of their leaders, boss, you get in a contract. You ain't know nothing how to saw or nail. You know if you use a hammer, but you get in big contract, 899 million Guyana dollars. And to do what? What you do, some of them just take a big profit out of it, and then they subcontract to somebody who know. Some of them don't even know if the subcontractor is good enough. And that is why we get in substandard road, substandard pumping stations, work not being done, and a whole host of things. So indeed, our economy is growing based on the statistics that all the economists know about, but the economy is not redistributive enough so that our ordinary people can get the benefits of it. Of course, the PPP wants to tell you, patience, buddy, hold on now. I can't wait. But when they were in our position, the aisle didn't even start coming up yet. And they're asking all kind of questions. Why you're not doing this? Why you're not doing that? 3 years now, they got the money. Over $7 billion. And what they're doing with it? What they're doing with it? I am disappointed. I don't want to use bad word here and so on, but I am so disappointed because quite frankly, you would have expected better from a party that all the way used to talk about working class and so on. But the working class traditions of the PPP under Jagdeo has diminished to zero. It's a set of crony capitalist contractors, these CCC boys, crony capitalist contractors. And that's the extension of the PPP these days. Even people like Donald getting very annoyed with them. And there is a big fight that is going on internal that the Donald Ranwatar faction, the more working class oriented faction. And you could see it from the statements that Donald coming out with now. And this fella, Jagdeo, running apparently mad, running insane. And he don't like when anybody talk bad about him or dissent from him. I was one of the important dissenters in that central committee room that used to give him a hard time, question him, scrutinize him. The man expelled me. Well, now inside of that party, you got Donald Ramutar talking different things from him. I hope he discipline Ramutar too. But he might not want to risk that with the former president. But the trouble is, that's how he operates. Nobody must say anything. He's an authoritarian, he's a strongman leader, and he likes to have things his way. Talk plenty about elections and so on, and inside of that PPP. 7 years now, there ain't got no Congress inside of the PPP. He's frightened because he might get knocked out from the PPP as General Secretary because of the nonsense he talking. And that is the trouble with this fella. But he gonna go and cuss me, he gonna go cuss Anand Gulsarani, he gonna go and cuss everybody. This time, by doing all of that madness, the people are suffering, and the country's monies are going to an elite crony contractor capitalist now.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne Caesar, for that question on point, and thank you for that elaborate explanation or response to that question. You did mention that it's been so many years since the PPP has last held its Congress, since 2016. What are some of the executives within the PPP are talking about that undemocratic move by Bara Jagdeo? No Congress since 2016.
They're scared like hell of that fella. He is a strong man, as I said, and he controls everything in that party, right up to the monies. He controls literally the Irfan Ali. And he could tell Irfan Ali, knock out this one here. He talking stubbornness. That is what he does. The minute you to start openly and in constructive fashion, tell him that he's doing wrong things. Well, he can't do that against Donald. Donald served his term. Donald gets his pension. Donald, feel principled. And I always know Donald is a principled communist. He was the dragon type. He hates America. And he can cuss America. Today, he do an article on the Grenada Revolution and so on, and he will always remember it. I could understand. He's principled, he's honest, and at least you know him. You see what you get. This fella, however, is not that type. But
speaking of being principled and honored, before we get back to Mr. Caesar, just prior to the 2015 elections, Mr. Donald Ramutar awarded 2 oil blocks just before he demitted office. 2 oil blocks worth billions of US dollars. He's saying that he didn't know or he's just playing dead. What is your take on that?
Well, you raise a point there. It is very difficult for a president not to know in relation to oil blocks. I question him on his explanation there, and I want to believe that he might not be speaking the truth in relation to those oil blocks, because the president ought, before he put his signature, must know about these facts in relation to who and who are getting what and what. What might be the mistake he made was that probably he was told that these are deserving people, and on the basis of what he was advised on, probably gave. But in any event, I still believe that he's a far cry from this fellow that we got right now. And Donald would have ensured that there be free and fairly held delegates elections to a PPP Congress. 2016 was a long time, and it should have been done. But as against what is happening in the PPP now, I think all of them, except a very few of them, like Donald, don't fear him. Fear him. Donald is the only one that probably don't fear him. And that is why he would have things on them that he will use against them at the appropriate time if any of them wants to speak out. And there are lots of things to speak out about, especially that elections. Why you don't hold the elections? For all you know, he might win it again. But then again, there's an opportunity that other people might want it, and they could put up challenges to him. He don't like anybody to challenge him. And do you know, Mark, as we all should be doing on every program, is to say that he should not be there. When we did that constitutional reform as to 2 terms and no more, it was based on you American your American Constitution in the USA there. 2 terms and no more. That is what your Constitution, in very sweeping terms, stated. You know what that fella is arguing now inside of that PPP room? That with what law prohibits me from being a vice president? It is the law that says 2 terms and no more. There are conventions around that law that you can't go and become the general secretary of a party, the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and then sneak in as a vice president. That is the reason why we set up a 2 term and no more. But this convention of the Constitution that supplements the constitutional express provisions to the extent of saying that it means that you cannot run, you have to go pastor, go write a book like Obama, go write a book like the other presidents and so on, Bill Clinton and so. No, but he loves power. He loves to tell all those cabinet members what and what he thinks and what should be implemented and so on. And it is literally an autocrat that you have, not a Democrat. And the autocratic tendency is now shifting onto his party. 7 years and you're not getting no elections at Congress. At least the PNC had the Congress, AFC had the Congress. This jagabat that talks so much about elections and so on, he is rigging it by not having it. That's the kind of fellow we got.
All right. Well, I know when Caesar has his next question, but you know, the painting of Donald Ramotar speaking out now, which is good. And for some inexplicable reason, I'm thinking that Ramotar will be kicked out of the PPP. I'm sure that you have space in the AFC for him. You may not want to say that now. Wayne Caesar is laughing. He and I were discussing that all earlier. But isn't it the same Ramotar, Donald Ramotar? In 2006, I believe he was the general secretary of the PPP then. Am I correct?
Yeah, if you're referring to my incident, it was 2004.
Yeah, your incident is 2004, but I'm not referring to your incident, but you know about your incident indeed. But I'm talking about the 2006 elections when the AFC was robbed of a seat in
Yes.
the same Ramotar stood there and said nothing. And then in 2011, there was an attempt through GCOM to give an extra seat to the very PPP when Mr. Ramotar became the minority president. But anyways, I'm just reminding you of those 2 incidents. There might be more, but the same Donald Ramotar, who's speaking out now. And we're glad that he's speaking out.
No, it is a good thing. There must be internal party democracy. As a matter of fact, in the 2002 Congress, I proposed via, you could remember this, Mark, Section K Campbellville PPP group. You remember the proposal of Forset, myself, and a girl that we Kemraj Rai and a couple of others and so on. We all proposed amendments to the PPP's constitution, one of which was fundamental: delete communism, delete Marxism-Leninism, delete all of those things still remain because they did not support our proposition. Elect leaders at the party level. So if Jagdev got to be the general secretary, put on the ballot a vote for general secretary and get people to vie for the position. Jagdev didn't want that. And to vie for the leader, the others, just like how you vie for the central committee members. No, they didn't want that. I asked also for certain other amendments in geographic areas that the Congress have delegates proportionate to those areas, so that if you're going to have, let's say in some Amerindian areas, smaller amount of population, they can have delegates, but proportionate. So if Borby's got a lot of PPP members, they must have some more delegates to come to conference and so on, to proportionate the thing. No, they didn't want that, and so on. Well, we got them today, no elections being held, even though they got Marxism, Leninism, and communism inside of the Constitution. So, you know, this is what we have presently, and these things got to be spoken about more, because even poor Americans don't know that probably the PPP's constitution got all kind of Marxism, Leninism is the ideological position. They have to denounce America all the time. They have to create a communist society and so on. And I don't know if the Americans don't read these fellas, and that is exactly what Jagdeo does. He
Maybe,
likes that
maybe,
kind of ideological position.
maybe, Mr. Ramjatan, you got to give the Americans a copy of that. Mr. Caesar,
I gave them. I gave them.
give the Canadians too and the UK guys. Mr. Caesar, over to you, sir.
Yes, and trying to stay on topic here, Mr. Ramjatan. You would have gotten to see both sides, since you were a part of the PPPC before, and now you are a part of a coalition opposition, and you were a part of the coalition government also. So I just want you to give to our listeners and viewers the pros and cons, of a coalition as opposed to a one party rule where you have this one party just totally dominating. If you can, please.
Look, once you have a party which is made up of a coalition like the APNU AFC, it is one party. We went in there with an agreement as to our manifesto, as to our principles, and we ensure that that which we're going to disagree on will also be known. So disagreement issues are not going to come to the fore. Okay? And that also was entrenched in largely our Commingsburg Accord with the APNU. Myself and Granger signed on to it. So we then became one party, as it were. Of course, we had what is called disagreements, but that disagreement also happens in a unitary party like the PPP. When I was in the PPP, Chetty Jagan, and Chetty to a very great extent, allowed a democratic process. And when we started talking on very many major issues, and I was not in cabinet, but these issues used to be brought to the Central Committee, Chetty Jagan used to say, we want to hear the views of these people here. Remember, at one time prior to the 1992 elections, Chetty had said he wanted to bring in Clive Thomas and Rupert Rupnarayan and them fellas and so on as ministers, and he will help share. It will not be a zero-sum game and all kind of thing. When he got into government, a lot of us felt that, Chetty, what's happening to the WPA? I mean, I raised it on one or two occasions and so on. And they had some set of fellas, look, we won the elections. These topics shouldn't be raised. Well, you just got to shut your mouth because, indeed, a lot of promises are made sometimes. And then when you get into there, the location where you are situates what you're going to talk about. And so sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. But inside the unitary parties too, you have dissension. Right now, inside of the PPP, you got Donald Ramotar faction making statements that the oil contract must be renegotiated. But Jagdeo, who had spoken so much on it, Irfan Ali, who has spoken so much on it, they disagree with him now. Shut your mouth. You are not a specialist on oil and gas. Why you want to talk? Everybody knows I'm specialist. So you will have your disagreements. Politics by its very nature, and democratic politics as it were, always you'll have disagreements. Sometime in that 35-member group there in the PPP horseshoe room, right upstairs in the attic of Freedom House, we just get 35 views. Similarly, in my AFC, only the other day we come out with an NEC, National Executive Committee meeting. Boss, and the approaches to questions and so on, a lot of people will have. So don't feel that in democratic parties, whether you're in opposition and in a coalition, you're not going to have it. It is better when the party, of course, has a set of principles, have lived long enough, like the PNC and the PPP, to know how it is a cultural thing. We are an 18-year-old party, and we certainly have lots more to grow to create the consensuality that is required. But you are going to have, whether it's a coalition force or a unitary one-party kind of arrangement with history behind it and all of that, you're still going to have people who are going to disagree on policy matters, especially because when it comes to policy matters, nothing has been known to be perfect. If it even what you call like the gas agreement, that gas agreement that we signed on to, Wayne, I will tell you this. The PPP had problems as to what they would have agreed to if they had to sign on. But they then work out what is called a model agreement, 1% sharing, 1% royalty, 50% sharing, ring fencing, and everything else. So all this talk is cheap talk when Jack Dale and all of them said that it was a rotten contract, although we get 100% more royalty. And we did a lot more and get $18 million signature bonus. And the signature bonus had to be kept a little quiet in the couple first months because of the fact we wanted our Venezuelan issue to go to the CCJ. Jagdeo wanted to work out an arrangement to give a piece of the land and maritime section to the bloody Venezuelans. We did not want that. But you had to get lawyers who will be paid in the vicinity of $18 million, we understand, would be the lawyers' fees. And we did not want Guterres, the United Nations General Secretary, to make an announcement or put it out early enough so that Venezuela could go and do anything at the World Court. We wanted Guterres to send it there first. And this $18 million, they're saying how we wanted to thief it, but it was in the Bank of Guyana's governor's name at the Bank of Guyana. And this lighter Jagdeo would say that we want to steal money and so on. Jagdeo must understand, and you too, Wayne, must understand this point. When we had that maritime issue with Suriname, when Suriname took away one of the boats belonging to CGX, we went to the Maritime Tribunal and we had to pay the lawyers $10 million. You know who paid the $10 million for us? CGX. And it was like a signature bonus for from CGX. A lot of people don't know that. But this Jagabat you got photographed. Take the photograph off from there. He wants to let us to know now that we wanted to rob $18 million. We had to make the pronouncement, but the strategists in our Foreign Affairs Ministry indicated, please hold on, because we don't want Venezuela at any stage to go and do a kind of an interim injunction preventing the matter from going to the CCJ, because the Venezuelan wanted an office of a good person, officer to do the continue the thing. We said no, let it go now to the ICJ, because we know we can win the case. Jagdeo come out and say, well, we can give a little piece of the economic, maritime, this and that and whatever. But we had to tell him off, as we did. He wants to float seeding maritime space as you got there.
All right. Let's
Thank
go.
you so
much, Mr. Ramjatan, for that. Let's get straight to what Jagdeo said earlier. Please, not much time on him on this, but here we go.
They dealt with a grave matter. But here you are, two policy lightweights and people who have not been at the center of the serious discussions on national security and our preserving the integrity of this country. Being very glib and allowing the press conference to entertain some very dangerous notions. So we saw Ramjatan as in his usual mode. Ramjatan has, in his full lapdog mode, he has honed his skill admirably, the lapdog skill. So he was there every time adding to Norton. I saw his comments. Before you take questions, Norton made a statement. He said, before you take questions, I want to say my presence here is in full support of the statement made by the opposition leader. He had to interject that. Then along the way, he said, let me add that Aubrey is absolutely right about the issue.
So what is wrong with saying that Aubrey Norton, the leader of the opposition, is correct about the issue as it pertains to Venezuela? Does it call for you being described by Jagdeo as a lapdog?
Look, as I said earlier, Mark, this fella is running insane in his descriptions of people, love to denigrate and all of that. But quite frankly, I made my statement in support of Aubrey Norton because that was a very constructive statement that Norton did. and he wanted my support for it, and I went there. That doesn't mean that I'm a lapdog. But we all know that Jagdeo is a lapdog these days to ExxonMobil. Exxon just got to say, well, let me reduce this to 14 million, and he gone right down to 3 million. This chap here. In shame, people like Vince Adams saying, stop the flaring. Stop throwing the hot water in the ocean. It will affect fishery. And this is an environmental expert. What Jagdeo does? No, y'all throw the water and I pay a little penalty. $5 for every $100 profit that the people make. They could pay a $5. They end up with $95. He is a lapdog of Exxon. And this fellow now wants to call myself a lapdog for Aubrey Norton. Well, whatever it is, I support him on that issue because let me tell you something. They are sleeping on the wheels. Actually, they don't understand these national security issues. And he's saying that I'm a lightweight in it. I was 5 years there as public security minister at all the National Security Committee meetings, talking to people, especially our prime minister now. He was the head of the army, Phillips. And Phillips used to talk about those things. I hope Phillips is giving him advice, proper advice. Or sometimes he's the kind of fellow that don't take any advice from Phillips. But this is important. He loves to denigrate. And it doesn't come as any surprise to me. He never liked anybody that talks sense around him. He expels them. He expelled me. He shelved Moses Nagamutu. He shelved Ralph Ramkaran out of the PPP. Poor Ralph got to now go and farm Unog or Anog or something. No, that's the man. Everybody that talk about him and the other lesser people who he knock off too. And what he does now is drive fear. So everybody inside of that central committee room is literally a lapdog of his. And that's the lapdog, the Take, calling other people lapdog.
That was his presence at the press conference. It was to support Aubrey Norton in the lapdog mode. Because AFC is nothing practically without the PNC. And so,
look,
what
on
are
that
the things
issue,
they spoke about?
On that issue,
First of all,
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Ramjatan. Sorry.
on that issue that we are nothing without APNU, let me tell him, if he didn't know, when he expelled me from that party, this fella felt that that is the end of my political career. I mean, he was lucky that Janet, hid him under her skirts for so many years. Fella knock off Asghar Ali, talk lie about Asghar Ali and all that. What he doesn't realize is that after I was expelled, I formed a political party in association with Raphael and Sheila Holder and so many other people like Kathy and so on, and David Patterson and so on. And we managed to get 5 seats. This is the lightweight that he's talking about?
Don't
5
forget,
seats.
6,
Then we won 7 seats.
They stole 1 seat from you
Well,
guys.
yes, and he robbed us one for Region 10 for giving Prime Minister Mines. He robbed me one. That is 6 seats we should have gotten in 2006. Then in 2011, we got seven seats. And then in 2015, we got 12 seats. And today we got 9 parliamentary seats. Look, at least I have made my mark in this country as a political leader. I didn't go there without any seats and all of that. And we won an elections in coalition with the APNU. That is relevance. That's not a lightweight. That's heavyweight. Let he come out to the PPP. Let me say Donald Ramatardam expel his ass from there. You think he gonna get anybody voting for he? Not even his wife gonna vote for he. He wouldn't win a seat. I am certain about that. But I got 5, 7, 12, and 9. That's an achievement for a third party. And this is a man calling me lightweight. He's only a heavyweight because he's not holding elections in his party.
He is
He's
heavyweight.
only a heavyweight because he's not holding elections.
He is heavyweight in corruption. And you guys got 6 seats. They rigged and they robbed you guys 1 seat in 2006. And in 2015, in all fairness, as a coalition, you guys were allotted 12 seats.
Yeah, well, because we could have negotiated it from a position of strength. It is not as if allotted. You wanted to go alone? Well, you can go alone, no problem.
I
We
got
went
you.
together and we
Yeah.
got what we got. We got
Let-
a lot
let-
number of seats.
Before we go back to Mr. Wayne Caesar, let's get back to one other point here.
Well, Ramjatan spoke about us not understanding national security, and I wouldn't even get into that about Ramjatan and national security. This was the man whose biggest plan for fighting crime was to bring in dogs and horses from abroad. That was his trump. And amnesty for guns, as though the hardcore criminals would bring in their guns and give it over to the government. So
All right, respond to that before we get to Mr. Wayne Caesar. Horse and dogs to fight crime and amnesty.
Look,
My
this
recollection
fellow
that they started
obviously-
an amnesty under the PPP, but go ahead.
There was an amnesty that I called for, and we got a whole set of illegal guns. We didn't want to go initially and start raiding people's houses. We told them, bring in the guns. And it was a very successful amnesty that saw a number of illegal guns being brought in, because you have to warn the population, look, we are going to have an exercise. Please bring it in. And that eased the police force. What's wrong with that? Dogs and horses are necessary for a supplementary units that you have. The canine section can help catch a lot of the criminals. And by the way, they caught a lot of criminals. Every police force in the world has a canine section and the mounted branch section, where you go now, because them roads and dams inside of Blackbush, you gotta get horses to catch the thief men. How many murderers have not been caught because of the policemen using horses at the back there and in the interior area? This Jagabat seems not to appreciate. And it is not exclusively horses, dogs, and amnesty. We were the ones that brought in the DEA in a practical manner to come here and set up office. He was hiding it for 23 years. He didn't want the DEA to come. Is that last year, just before? He said, oh yes, Donald said that, look, I will have a change of policy and we're going to invite them. But the actual invitation and their implementation, establishment of a DEA office happened under our government. The other thing is the British security sector reform, 3.5 million pounds or whatever it was. The Raja Luncheon, and he did not want the British to come and recommend what should happen to our police force. We had to implement now the British security sector reform and a whole host of recommendations, all of which himself and Ben have now put on shelves. Nothing is being implemented. And he's saying that we don't know about security. This chap know nothing about security. All he knows about is political power, how to do the mischief here, how to knock off senior members of his party that are dissenting. That is what he does all the time, and drive fear into other people. And then he gets them to bow down to him and say, oh yes, by knowledge is encyclopedic. He know from alpha right down to zebra. And what he does, people in Guyana are punishing more under him now, as we started off this program with.
Keep in mind, under his presidency was the worst in terms of crime spree. He had no idea as to how to fight crime at all. He did nothing. And mind you, just lost the train of thought there, but let's get straight over. I was going to say that maybe he was jealous that you didn't make him one of the K9s. Mr. Wayne Caesar, go ahead, please.
Yes, Mark. Yes, and Mark, I'm gonna touch on Venezuela just a little bit here. Mr. Ramjatan, with the
you're breaking up. I didn't hear you clearly.
Yes, I'm gonna touch on Venezuela here for a quick minute. With the large influx of Venezuelan nationals coming into Guyana, manifesto, 50,000 jobs.
You break up again. You break up again.
Okay,
Mark, could you help in that regard? I
He's
didn't
talking
get the
about
question.
the influx of nationals from all over, Brazilians, and of course, recently now the Venezuelans. But continue, Mr. Caesar.
Yes.
Your question.
yes, with the influx of Venezuelans now into Guyana, if we could not have even take care of our Guyanese with 50,000 jobs, we couldn't even find jobs for them. How do we make these people comfortable that is coming into our country with hoping for a better life, Mr. Ramjatan?
Look, when you have to be very concerned about people coming to the country as refugees, we in the coalition government also realized that a lot of refugees, people who were being persecuted politically and was getting away from Venezuela, and people who for economic reasons were coming in, notwithstanding that we have our own problems in Guyana, you still got to accept under international law and for human conscience, you have to accept refugees. But however, what we are seeing now is not only refugees coming in, but migrants, people who want to come in for a variety of reasons. And we have to be cautious as to what we do there. We can make up our minds after checking these people out as to what decision we should make in relation to them. And we are coming to the realization that a number of these people ought not to be here. They might be military officers. We understand that some of them had training in the Venezuelan police force and whatever, policia, whatever, and so on. So we got to be careful. And that is why I am saying that they are sleeping on the wheels. I do not know if their immigration authorities or whosoever are doing this migration and all that are just allowing the people to come so that they can then register as voters and so on. But we also have a third category. People who are Venezuelans, not born in Guyana, but saying that they are Venezuelans, and they are now indicating via a route by virtue of an amendment to the Births and Deaths Act, by getting a tushao in the area, well aligned to the PPP, that this man born here 20 years ago. As a result, they do an affidavit, and the affidavit says that you now can send it to the GRO boss man, the GRO there, and who that person is. I think it's Bishop Edgill's brother.
Yeah,
is the man in charge now.
Cummings is probably removed, but yeah, he was there.
Yeah, well, whosoever it is, I understand that there is a relationship with Mr. Edgill. I may be mistaken about that, but I was told reliably that it is.
Yeah,
that fellow is now filling up the
Yeah.
birth certificates and then giving the people birth certificates. Now that has an effect on electoral integrity, but more so it also can be genuine Venezuelans who are now become Guyanese, have rights of Guyanese, and can do all manner of things in that Essequibo region. Just like how the Russians did with Crimea, and they take it over. So it is important that we do not sleep at the wheels. As a consequence of knowing as heavyweights what can happen in national security, we are making these points. But this lightweight you got here, or weightlessness as you got, because I don't think that he got any sense at all, he is saying that we all got it wrong. This chap here is up to something, whether it is the electoral integrity point that we made, or it could very well be that he's going to just blindly allow the country to be, that part of the country, to have enough Venezuelans that can make a difference. And even right as we speak now, the entire Venezuela opposition in parliament and all of them, they meet somewhere in Barbados recently, and they are together on this issue. Venezuela. Opposition and the government have now met at the behest, I think, of the Biden administration in Barbados, and they have been united. Now, on this issue of national security, we must be united too. And that is why we are pleading with him. You got to talk to the opposition leader. Don't leave him out. And if the opposition leader has formed a coalition with AFC would like to be there too to talk with him about the national issue. Because if the Venezuelans come in, look, there's a lot of PNC supporters going to go and fight. You're going to see how much other party supporters go catch plane and run America. You better watch it. You're going to see who's going to run and who's going to run the fight.
Let's stick to the question of Venezuela here. Here is what Jack Day had to say. The lightweight.
It's false. Mr. Norton, I think when asked by Chabrol about numbers, he said they don't have numbers. Well, those are the numbers I'm telling you about. But he said that they were making objections. But the claims and objection period has not started because the registration period runs up to November 30th, and thereafter there will be a claims and objection period at which they can go and object to any name that they believe is fraudulently placed on the list.
That
So
is
clearly,
madness.
he was lying again because they couldn't have made any objections. The claim and objection period has not even started.
That is
And
that.
as you see,
Yeah, go
Look,
ahead.
just
go
leave
ahead,
him
Mr.
there. Just
Go
leave
ahead.
him there.
Go
All
ahead.
right.
Yeah.
That is a piece of madness. That is a piece of madness from this fella. There is scrutineers in all these interior regions. And when you're scrutinizing who getting registered, you can make an objection and say, well, that man is not supposed to be on this list. You don't have to wait until the claims and objections period. That is why we have scrutineers. What Aubrey Norton was talking about was his scrutineers, because for each of the registration center, there is a PNC or APNU scrutineer. You got to get one. They didn't want to give it also, that is the PPP. They didn't want to give an AFC any scrutineer in these areas. They said one opposition only. Okay? And I understand from the PNC scrutineers, they have been making objection that that man should not be there on the list, and we are objecting. You don't have to wait until, and you sit down here behind and say nothing. If you see an egregious case of a Venezuelan trying to get registered, you're not going to open your mouth. And they have been opening their mouths in Region 1. And that is what they've been doing. So this Jagabat does not understand that you can make objections. What he feels, that as a scrutineer in this exercise, you got to wait until November when you're going to get claims and objections. So what? You just stand up there and you don't tell the presiding officer, not the presiding officer, the registration officer, hold on a minute, I am objecting to this fella. And that is what the people have been doing. As to how many they have objected to, well, we're going to get that. But even some of his scrutineers have been indicating, I don't know that this man is a Guyanese. We understanding all of that happening. And now he coming and twisting the story, urging upon Guyanese that it's only the claims and objections period that you can object to the registration of somebody. Man, he doesn't know. He's not a heavyweight.
It's a lightweight.
the numbers are not unusual based on previous registration and based on population, as we know, in the region. Ramjatan said something that was very strange, though. He said people who are known not to be Guyanese born, but born in Venezuela are registering. And I want to remind Ramjatan, because I think he himself has family who are born abroad and close family, that they would be eligible for Guyanese citizenship too. Because a lot of the Venezuelans, the people who we are calling Venezuelans, they're really Guyanese.
All right. From a legal standpoint, you're a trained lawyer. Explain what exactly he's trying to spread his propaganda. Explain that, please, sir.
He is so distorting and he's confusing this fella, and is dishonest. Indeed, if you're a Guyanese born and you go over there and you get children, the children could be born over there, and indeed the children could also apply for Guyanese via their parents. That happens with a lot of people from Guyana and so on. Saying people who are born Guyanese, born Venezuelans, are coming across and getting the Tushao to say that they were born in Guyana. So they are born over there. They never get naturalization, even though they're born over there via their parents. They simply come across and say, well, I was born in Guyana. They were born in Venezuela. So he is mixing up the bloody thing. We have evidence that people who are born in Venezuela
Yep, sorry about that, Guy. Folks, Mr. Kemrat Ramjatan, it was just getting nice and heated up there, Mr. Wayne Caesar. Let's hope that we will be rejoined by Mr. Ramjatan shortly. Internet connection out in Guyana, the usual thing under the PPPC regime. Mr. Caesar, we're looking at the time, but we still could wait for Mr. Kemrat Ramjatan to rejoin. Lots of revealing things, and Jack Deere is obviously exposed as a pathological liar in all of this.
Well, listen, Mark, from listening in on that press conference, I didn't have the opportunity to look at it earlier, but from listening into those clips there that you would have just played and just hearing that last part there with Jack Dio elaborating on the list and GCOM and stuff, it just paints a picture that GCOM is not an independent body, man. You know, this is this.
Are you hearing me?
Sorry, we have Mr.
Go ahead, Mr.
Ramjatan. Go ahead.
Yeah. I am saying that he's confusing the situation. If you are a born Venezuelan, before you can be a Guyanese, you got to be with parents that have caused a naturalization here in Guyana. Right? The parents have to make the application that although you're born over there, you're from Guyanese parents and so on. We are seeing people who are Venezuelan born registering via this Tushao thing. And the Tushao stating that I know that this man was born Guyanese. The man was born in Venezuela. Late registration, you call it. The late registration prior to what the PPP did in the amendment was that you got to go to a magistrate court to say that I was born in 1999, but my mother never registered me. But my aunt delivered me. She was a midwife and this and that and whatever. And you got to prove that indeed you were born in Guyana via, and the magistrate had a lot of questions to ask that you born. That is called late registration. So 20 years after you're born, then you get a birth certificate. That's what's happening there. Venezuelans born are being now via this amendment that the PPP used to slacken the process of late registration. They are being registered as if they're born in Guyana, but they're not born in Guyana. And that Jagabat just now was giving a wrong impression as to who is being registered. It is not Guyanese children of Venezuelan born. These are the Venezuelan born parents literally being registered. And that is wrong. It is going to bring a lot of problems to this country because we intend to ask him, give us all those Venezuelans who the Tushao say born in Guyana and had to be late registered. You're going to see trouble we're going to get because they know that these regions are so close. One of the regions, we won by 1 vote when it was counted back and all of that. These people could put thousands of these Venezuelans, align them to them, feed them, and do all kind of thing, and they buy the vote. And they register them late now, although they're Venezuelan born. Just for the sake of power, they could now create even national security issues. And he go in and say that Ramjatan doesn't understand the thing. Look, this is something I used to teach people like Jack Dale to understand. I used to teach him. He didn't know those days all the machinations of the PNC. You had to explain it word by, and he's a very slow learner, very slow learner.
A very slow speaker as well. Very slow. You can tell something is definitely wrong. A man who loves to be called doctor, even though it's an honorary doctorate. Shame and disgrace. Mr. Wayne sees as we look for time, as we wind down, your next question, please.
Mr. Ramjitan, there was a statement by Ms. Priyamani Chan that said that the opposition, have never built a school or is not responsible for building any schools in Guyana. I know there's a school that's going up in Linden. But outside of that, my question to you is she talking about the Christchurch school, which is a rebuilt from a school that, burned down, the St. George's School, and of course, North Rumvelt Secondary, and maybe the school in Madia? I'm not sure if that school is being reconstructed or not. I'm not sure of that one. But is it that she's talking about? Because I don't know of anything else. You're closer to the situation.
Well, I'm not very strong on the education sector, I'll tell you honestly, but to say that we haven't built any schools, that obviously is not true. I am certain that during the 5-year period that we were in, schools were built, and I'd have to get the information from the quinquennial reports of my minister colleague in education. But I think that some schools are opened by our administration, and that again will be just a political mileage. In any event, we could not build as many schools as we said we will build under the regime of oil and gas, because we knew that we had lots of monies more to get, and we certainly are glad that she will utilize the monies to build schools now that the billions of dollars, as I mentioned earlier in the program, are coming in as a revenue stream. But I understand that they are going to build schools out of monies that will be loaned by the IDB. All of this, yes, 60 million, 90 million loan from the IDB. And the primary schools will be built. Great thing. But I still ask the question, why are you taking a loan from the IDB? Why not cut the contractor's contract and take the monies there? Look, the best economy is the one that has a balanced budget. If you earn $5 billion, spend $5 billion. Don't go and borrow. Because if the oil prices gone down, and Levy said you manage because of constraining factors, not get the revenue stream, you still have to pay back IDB and World Bank and the IMF and all of that. Chetty Jagan used to teach us about that. Do not borrow if you have the finances that can take care of yourself. We are getting more than sugar, rice, and bauxite ever produced. That is the billions from the oil. Utilize that money for building the schools. What they're doing now is borrowing, and that borrowing will. By the way, the borrowing has, apart from the negative that I just mentioned, it got a lot of corruption. Remember I talked about corruption? So you buy 90 million US dollars more you got there. You're going to give one of your contractor friend to build some school, like the Carey's guy that built some school in the interior, and the whole school collapsing. You understand? And that is what they're doing. But in addition to that, we do not have the quality contractors and sometimes to spend all this money in this one big flush, as it were. Too many knockabout contractors are being employed and deployed. You got to ensure that you give this $90 million to some people that know how to build. Look what they're doing to Brian Tiwari today. No contracts. Very competent fella. Years and years of experience. None. But they're going to give who? Tipui. And know nothing about pump station. But you're going to give him. And he's going to holler in, Donald, I out to get you, Donald. And all kind of madness. We could see the madness in the fella. And that is what I'm saying. So there is corruption when you have this large flush of cash that will go for all kinds of infrastructural works. When you read any economic text, they always tell you, and I always refer to a classic economist from Oxford University, The Bottom Billion he wrote. And he indicated that it's in contracts that the corruption is, even in England. They're going to take and call big set of monies, and it's corruptly granted to them because the government sometimes don't know what is the true cost and all of that. This government, I have a fair idea, knows what the costs are, and they give the people double time and so on, so that they could get their war chest in order. So corruption, but also an incapability for construction work to go on in the very big way that they wanted. So we're going to end up with substandard school. Have we done a design, knowing how hot schools are now with this temperature rise as a result of climate change, as to the circulation of the air in those schools in these moments now? Have we prepared for air conditioning in the building itself? All of that? I don't think they've done designs for schools, especially primary school. How are you going to get children picking up when it's going to be hot, hot, hot? And they like these contractors like to make the schools the substandard too, so they could cut the monies and they could begin the profits and so on. Look, I like the fact that they're going to spend some more behind schools, but they should have taken it out and don't make the borrowings be the basis for it, because it's the next generation that got to pay for this $90 million back. It is not the present generation. The present generation of leaders must ensure that you spend as you earn. So if you're working for $30,000, you spend $30,000. If you're working for $3 billion, you spend $3 billion. But they want a $90 billion to do. And they got corruption behind it. They got a lot of substandard work. And I think they haven't done the designing of schools properly. So that's my comment on all this education money that they love to talk about.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ramjatan. The author from Oxford there, The Bottom Billion, is Paul Collier.
Paul Collier. By the way, he came to Guyana. He came to Guyana when we and I was the one that advised Mr. Granger and Raphael Trotman, please bring in a competent fellow. And he came and he told us, look, whatever the deal that you got with the oil, it is a done deal. Start managing the money properly when it starts coming in. That is what Paul Collier did. The Bottom Billion was a classic. And I met him, I shook his hand, and I even gave him my Bottom Billion to autograph, and I have it here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. But before we get to your brief closing remarks, Mr. Ramjatan, it's been a healthy discussion, and we really appreciate. Go ahead, sir. You were going to say something.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you very much.
No, we're not yet. We're not yet to your final closing remarks.
Sorry. I thought you asked me
an opportunity to ask the final question. Go ahead, Mr. Caesar.
Okay, well, we touched on schools. So, Mr. Ramjatan, my final question to you is, as a coalition, are you guys prepared to go to elections at any time? Are you guys prepared?
We are prepared because, of course, elections got to be called within a certain timeline. We got lots of work to do, Wayne. It is not easy. But I, as leader of the AFC, do not see it happening this year. I don't see it happening early next year. The PPP wants its full 5 years. Take it from me. That is my analysis. Now, we might have disagreements, even with my party leaders, other party leaders, and so on, that they might pull a thing quick on us next year. Well, I believe that with all this fighting inside of the party, Irfan Ali can say, I want my 5 years as president. All right? And you can get it until 2025. Plus, they are, as I have been telling you, are in a purgatory all across this country with the East Indian base. They know how corrupt they are today, and a lot of them telling them that they're not going to turn up to vote like Auntie Dad today just now. They're not going to turn up and vote. And so they want some time period now to share out the money. This 2024 budget, you're going to see they're going to increase things like pension and so on. And they're going to increase the salaries for public servants and so on. And they're going to try to talk, and we got plenty more for give value in 2025. So you make the people suffer three and a half years, and then they're going to start doling it out. All right? That is what they're going to do. So I don't see them wanting at all at this time to call elections. But of course, we have to be prepared all the time. We have been going out in our outreaches with the limited resources that we have now. We're certainly going to have more as election times come around and all of that. But we are prepared. Let them call it if they want to. They have to also ensure a second thing. The voters list is acceptable. They didn't do nothing about that yet. We want on the AFC a residency requirement. If you're a voter and you're living at 10 Del Street like Ramjatan for the last 30 years, you must be there. When you go in now, I can go to the Campbellville Primary School or the Ramakrishna Annex to go and vote. I can know because I am resident at lot 10 Del Street, Campbellville. They don't want to do that. Now, when we ask, would it require a constitutional reform process for that? And I'll say, yes, y'all can have to wait until a constitutional process. He said that he's going to ensure that this constitutional process happened this year, you know. Up to now, nothing is happening. He said he's going to name the Chief Justice and the Chancellor and all of that. Nothing happening. When you see a political party don't want to do things like that, to enhance the independence by virtue of the substantial positions being granted, when they don't want voter to start, voter reformation to start, and the voter register to start having people who living in the area that got to vote, it's problems. And especially when they got now hustling with the two shows to register Venezuelan born, as if they're born in Guyana. So that it is problematic. And Jack Deo, the lightweight, must understand that we heavyweights understand all the machinations that he's involved in relation to these matters. He called the shots over there, you know.
Yeah.
He calls the shots. And he don't want to call those shots. He wants to call the other shots. Ramjataninga integrity, Anand Gulsraninga and integrity, and Mark Benchcraft, well, he got plenty integrity.
He's the only one. That guy, that lapdog, Jack Deo seems to be the only one that has everything, carrying around a fake doctor. But before we go, though, and I know I have this tendency of asking an extra question, but it has to do with elections time. Jack Deo obviously is afraid of a coalition again. Are you contemplating, or if push comes to shove, that you have to coalesce again with the PNC or the APNU, maybe take the prime ministerial position? Are you willing to coalesce again with APNU/PNC?
Look, coalition politics in Guyana depends on both parties and what arrangements they're going to make. We in the Alliance for Change, and I especially, want a democratic process. I would like to see the national conference of the AFC, what we call national conference elections, decide that matter. There are people in my AFC who do not want to go, and they're saying that we should be independent. We're going to win 15 seats, 11 seats, this, that, whatever. Some of them feel that we must go and we can win in elections like in 2015 and so on. And so we'll have to debate that. In 2015, we had a big St. Stanislaus democratic process at the national conference there, where the majority said, we joining up, go and start negotiating, after we were told by Mr. Granger that he's interested in the idea and he proposed it. We got to do the same thing again. I don't want to be seen. I have my personal view, as I said, my personal view at the last press conference with Aubrey Norton. We are better, stronger. We are stronger being together. So it is. That is my personal opinion. But my personal opinion does not, in any way, it's influential, but it will. A number of my political other leaders and so on, they can have very vastly different approaches. As I said, in a Democratic Party, you're going to have, if we got 300 members and delegates like we had at St. Stanislaus College, you can have 300 different ideas or variations. So I am going to await at that time, Mark. And So understand my position in it. That nothing like prime ministership going to open my eyes. What the democratic process is, for all you know, I might even be back there as leader, feeling old and so on these days. So it all depends on so many considerations. And you might have another bright young fella who, like Ramjatan was 30 years ago, full of vitality and energy, and is not a lapdog of anybody. And so you can have that kind of thing happening. Politics moves and is very dynamic. Every day there are changes. And so it is important to understand in that context. That's my answer to your question. And I want to say in my closing remarks, thanks very much, Mark, for allowing me. You know, we go back since quarantine days. I know you, what is it called? Short pants or short pants by? Short pants by is I know it since, you know, Wayne. Yeah. Manchester Secondary School.
Wayne on a private thing. Wayne is a free education man. And the PPP, what you always say, Wayne, that the PPP promise what? Free education? Is that
Yeah,
what?
Mr. Ramjatan, my question to you, that just accept this last one here. Are we going to see free education at the university level before the 2025 elections? Your take on
Yes,
that?
just before the elections, you can see lightweight Jagdeo and their finale, they're going to grant it. That is what they're going to do to fool the people. They might even grant it 24 budget. But remember, it is going to be done. And then they're going to say, y'all ain't going to vote for me now? And then they could twist up. Buy the votes as a result. Let them suffer the whole 4 years before. A lot of people now going to get graduation and they got to pay. But on the 2025 or early thereabouts, they come and put it on a platter as we promised you. And I believe it will happen because it will be a big influencing factor, and especially those who will want to attend university. But that's the trickery of the game.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Wayne Caesar, for those questions as well. Just 1 minute, though. Leave the people with some sort of hope. We know the PPP cannot govern. Massive corruption. Jagdev is running from Sioux. Jagdev is filled with propaganda. Jagdev is a lightweight. Jagdev is not a doctor. We know all of these things, and Irfan is over in Canada dancing up while the people are looking in the direction of Venezuela. They're looking for leadership in the country. There is none given by the PPPC. Leave the people with some sort of hope, please, Mr. Ramji.
No, I would want to tell the people, just listen to us. A number of them just want to be living in bubbles. And that is what I'm trying to crack, the bubbles within the PPP email trolls, the Facebook trolls, and a number of other strings. And you got to do this kind of thing. Chedi Jagan used to say, look, I don't want to go Port Morant or Albion. We know we got to be support base there. What we got to do is to go to Linden, and we got to go to Albaistong. We got to deal with Odinga Lumumba in Albaistong. And Chedi had put me up to go to Albaistong in those days. That is where we got to focus. And I am urging that indeed we have our support bases in and around certain places. We got to go now into Albion. We got to go to some of the Essequibo and so on. And I'm urging our support bases in those areas to talk to these people, tell them what we intend to do. We have lots of statements out almost every week. If it is not the APNU, it is the AFC making statements. In the parliament, we take a number of speeches and we make it into policy-oriented statements. Listen to us, giving us your ears. That is important because we are here to ensure a better governance, far more accountability. And I want to tell you, you are in the best position now, viewers out there, to know the quality governance that the Granger administration gave to the Guyanese people. And it was incremental, and in areas it was quick enough to make a difference. We ensured that opposition was on all the various boards, the commissions and so on were working. But you know what the PPP promised in the 2020 elections? All they fell back on. They said they're going to give this, renegotiate the contract. Now they are at pains to say that the word renegotiate in their manifesto does not mean renegotiate. They're becoming lapdogs to Exxon. We had to sign a contract which they had prepared in 2012. We fought the Exxon people. We managed only 100% more of royalty. But that is what we did because it was not a model agreement. It was a model agreement. It modeled up all of it. And when we tried calling some of them, what kind of model agreement this? None of them want to come, you know. Jack Damon want to come. Robert Posade want to come. None of them. And so we had to do what we did. And it turns out that it is bringing in a lot of money. Today they talk about sanctity of contract. So you see the hypocrisy. It is that hypocrisy that the electorate don't like. And this electorate is going to make a big difference. That is why Barrett running tomorrow. Barrett running to Essequibo. Everywhere that we go, he running. And that is why sometimes, you know, it's got to do this thing in urban guerrilla warfare. Like, you mustn't know where Ramjatan going. Because as soon as you gone there, they gone there. As soon as you make a statement about Venezuela, they don't make a statement about Venezuela. Yes, that is what they do. They don't have any intellectual capacity. It is a very dumb and dim-witted administration we have. So I'm urging viewers out there, make sure that you put back or take out the PPP and put back either a coalition of some sort. You must do that at this stage. Because when you do the comparisons and the contrast, we had a superior governance structure. We had superior accountabilities. Right now, you don't have. That's all I want.
And we're glad that you're able to, Mr. Ramjatan, this evening. Wayne and I and all of our listeners, we are glad that you were able to at least set the record straight so that this lapdog can understand politics and real governance of a country, not through corruption and intimidation and vindictiveness and all manner of things. Thank you so much, Mr. Kemrad Ramjatan. Continue the work that you're doing there, and let's hope for a stronger coalition next time around. Thank you so much. Yeah. And Mr. Wayne Caesar, thank you so much as always. I know we have a lot to discuss. I'm concerning tonight's discussion here with Mr. Kemrad Ramjatan, and let us not just tire out our viewers for this evening. But any quick closing remarks for about a minute, Mr. Caesar? Go ahead, sir.
Well, you guys, you and Mr. Ramjatan, you all both killed me with the lapdog situation there, but it's just so funny, you know. But I thought Mr. Ramjatan really brought the goods tonight, man. He was excellent. He was on point. You know, he answered all the questions elegantly. And, you know, we got a lot of information tonight here, you know, that, you know, could set the program straight then as to, you know, where the coalition stands and where they're going. And that's a good thing. I feel like if the coalition is solid right now, and I'm leaning more towards, you know, seeing the coalition going it together. And Mark, I am of the opinion that the coalition government is the best government for Guyana, you know, based especially on our ethnic makeup and all of this stuff. It gives everybody a chance to have a seat at the table. You have multiple leaders. You're not just working behind one vision, but you're working on multiple visions aligning as one. So listen, this is good. And Mark, you know what? One thing I want to really touch on here.
Please,
yes, I am, you know, the PPPC, man, they do not respect their supporters, man. You know, those supporters of the PPPC that they would have failed, they're not trying to correct anything. Instead of that, they're trying to pull in the Venezuelans. So I hope that this is painting a picture to the people, that the people of Guyana who are there all the time, you know, I'm not saying that the Venezuelans should not be a part of the process, but the people of Guyana who are there all the time have to understand that they have to come together in order to preserve Guyana.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne Caesar. We're out of here. See you guys tomorrow evening. God bless you all. So long.
Basement level vibes with another one. Straight up blackness, I who tell the truth. Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, radio station is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrant stop, who tell the truth. Migrant stop, defend the ghetto youth. Migrant stop, radio station is the fruit. Migrant stop, straight up from the root. Migrant stop, I do it for the love, him not do it for no money. Straight up, him attack, educating everybody. Big up my friends and big up my family. Turn on the radio, catch the vibes, it's integrity. Straight up, and SCAP stands for unity. One people, one.
Yeah, my name is Jacinty Caldata, Francis C. Vietnam, and since 1965, I become a voter. And I always place my ex next to the cup. And what they are doing today, I can't take it. So I have no more vote to give to PPP anymore. I'm not going to vote anymore no more. If they have to lose by one vote, they're losing it by data.
This is attorney Shellen Washington, owner and founder of the Washington law firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.